Hi, everyone. This is Danny Haiphong, as I'm sure I was introduced. I run a YouTube show on geopolitics, especially relating to China and Russia developments and the changing multipolar world order. I've been a writer, continue to write for places like Beijing Review and CGTN, Global Times, etc. And I helped co-found Friends of Socialist China, which was hosting this delegation, and I have to give a big shout out to Carlos Martinez and Keith Bennett for their arduous work in putting this together, as well as the CNIE, the China NGO for International Exchanges, all of the staff, especially Ma Jingjing and Lu Ning, who made the trip so seamless and not just incredibly enjoyable, but also very informative and instructive for the work that we have ahead of us. So I want to talk about the implications of this trip. I'm sure many who are participating in this event, who are speaking here, will talk about the experiences they had in places like Seping and Changchuan and the larger Zhejiang province that we attended or that we traveled to, as well as places like Jiaxing and Hangzhou, the wealthiest city in all of China. We also were in Beijing. So we got to travel to so many places. We were in Jilin province, which borders the DPRK and is a hub for development, especially in relation to high speed rail and new energy development. Very inspiring. We spoke to provincial officials in the Communist Party of China. We went to party schools to learn about not just party life, but what do party members learn? How do they understand China's development process? We focused a lot on modernization, how China is spearheading modernization in a completely different way under socialist principles and diktats, which have the people's interests and livelihoods at the center. But I wanted to talk more about the implications of people to people exchanges, which China has made a national priority at this time. And why is it a national priority? Well, there is a profound misunderstanding and, dare I say, xenophobia, a growing antipathy toward China in the collective West, in the United States as the hegemon and epicenter of the collective West, that is a cancer upon all that humanity has to offer, to look forward to, and to enjoy in this present moment. Socialism is, of course, the highest priority, not just of China, but I believe for all of humanity. However, even just the prospects of peace, of existence, are now under threat because of the behavior, the policies, and actions of the US empire. Just take a look at how the US Indo Pacific Command, this rabid and heinous command structure that threatens war with China, how it has behaved even in recent days, talking about creating an unmanned hellscape for China in a war over Taiwan. This is literally how they are talking about Taiwan and China. Look at NATO's escalations with Russia. Look at how the US is militarily encircling China. Look at how Europe is about to shoot itself and all of the rest of its toes by imposing tariffs on China's electric vehicle industry, following its master, the United States, in imposing such reckless economic measures. Look at the sanctions, look at the misery that the global majority has to endure because of the Western way of life, because of Western imperialism. All of this is a threat to our very existence, our livelihoods, and our interests. And China is a shining example of what it means to break from this, and not just to break from this, but to build the very architecture from which everyone can break from it. And that is what people to people exchanges can help us learn, can help imbue into the minds and hearts of people in the collective West who are being misled, who are being manipulated, who are being drawn into a war that will not benefit them, or it will simply benefit the very few at the top of the imperialist hierarchy. we have to talk about when we talk about people to people exchanges, we have to talk about solidarity and what solidarity really means. It means to view yourself as an equal to those you are in solidarity with, and it means that you come together around a common project in defense of one another. China has held up its bargain. China has put forward a model of peaceful relations, of win-win cooperation, peaceful development, and a complete policy, foreign policy of non-interference. China does not wage wars. When you go to China, war is not in the vocabulary. There is no appetite for war. There's a big appetite for defending sovereignty, but there's no appetite for war. No one, when you go to China, will talk about sanctions. No one will talk about economic war or any kind of war. The big reality that hits you very hard when you go to China is the fact that people are confident, people are hopeful in the future, and people are living their lives for not just themselves, but for the betterment of all of China. And now, in a really huge and very important position of also showing by example what prospects can be looked forward to for the rest of the world. So, people to people exchanges hold the cards, hold the ability to teach us all what it means to be in solidarity with each other. That's why I love to go on people to people exchanges. It's why I attend these delegations. It's because not only do I get to learn more about how Chinese people, how the Communist Party of China is moving the world forward in a very progressive way, but I also get to come back and talk about this and educate others so that they can become part of this process, so that we can all become part of the multipolar process, that we can begin to learn what it would mean to talk about and implement a kind of socialism within our own context. China is socialism with Chinese characteristics. What will it be for the United States? What will it be for the collective West? That is the answer. That is the question that has not yet been answered. But surely, when we travel to China, we can see the modern development. We can see the infrastructure that is built that benefits everybody. We can see the higher standard of living that if you were to go to China 10, 20, 30 years ago, you would not be able to see the same China. You would see a more polluted China, a more impoverished China. This is what progress really looks like in a collective sense. And so when you go to China, you see how the US empire has already been defeated. The US empire cannot sanction China. You go to China, no one is, as I said, going to talk about sanctions. Why? They don't feel them. Why don't they feel the sanctions? Well, because China has the people at heart, and China will always restructure and reorient its economy so that the people's interests come first. On a prior trip to China, I was told that yes, Huawei was hit hard by sanctions and it affected the ability to release 5G phones. Well, I go back to China now and there are 5G phones sold by Huawei everywhere, including the Huawei Mate Pro 60, which just blew the brains out of people like Gina Raimondo. So, this is the reality that we live in today. It is a hopeful reality on the one hand when we exchange with China and build solidarity and see what a new world can look like. But on the other hand, we come back to the United States and the collective West and we see the misery, the poverty, the repression, the collapse, the utter collapse of the political, economic, and military order led by the US. And that is the one that we ultimately have to focus on. But we are very lucky and thankful to have an example like China to show us that a new world is indeed possible, that we do not have to languish in the same state, that politics, development, it is not linear, it is always in motion, that this is not always how it has to be. The Chinese people once lived under semi feudal and semi colonial squalor. They once were humiliated for over a century. Now they stand tall. Now they have built a new China. Now that new China is becoming not just a shining example of what a country can do, but also a leader in a new development in the world that will take us to the goal that I think all of us have here, which is world peace in our lifetime. That is what China's model for multipolarity and foreign policy and relations across the world holds for all of us. And it is up to us to continue to strengthen people to people exchanges like these so that more and more people can see it. More and more people in especially our political circles, those on the left mainly, who continue to ignore China or demonize China, they do not know the real China. Only when you go can you know the real China. Only when you can see the blue skies in Beijing when they once were smog riddled just a decade plus ago. When you see the tens of thousands of high speed rail built when just 16 years ago there was not one in China. When you see this rapid development, when you see this progress, you cannot help but wonder what in the world is happening where we reside. Why is there such a stark difference? That question leads to the answer of why the United States is aggressive toward China, why there is this ever escalating war toward China. So I have, of course, spoken, I usually don't, but I have spoken longer than the time allotted to me. But I just want to say to everyone who was on the delegation that it was a wonderful experience being with all of you. I want to say once again, it is my thanks and appreciation to the International Manifesto Group and Friends of Socialist China for putting on this event, to the China NGO Network for International Exchanges for hosting such an incredible delegation. And I look forward to many more trips to China to come because our mission is going to be a protracted one. Our struggle is going to be a protracted one. In order to achieve true peace, in order to achieve true multipolarity, those of us sitting inside of the unipolar imperial albatross, this diseased and cancer ridden uh, world order that has caused so much devastation to the global majority. It is we who are sitting here that are ultimately responsible to close its casket once and for all. Once again, many thanks, and I hope to see everyone who was on the delegation with me, as well as some of you who are listening at some point in the near future.